Championship players who've recently made a move to the Premier League, how are they getting on? Let's find out. So guys, welcome back to another video on the channel. I know that you guys like these tier list videos, and we got a little bit of a different concept coming at you today. So I've gone back over the last sort of 2 or so transfer windows, and we've had some pretty big moves out of the Championship into the Premier League. Today I'm going to be ranking those players for how well I think they've gotten so far at their new Premier League clubs. Have they adapted well to that level, or are they still settling in? Before we do hop into the video, I must give a big shout out to our sponsors over at OneFootball. As always, you can find the new OneFootball app in the top line of the description down below. Really handy app to have with all the football that we've got going on at the moment. Also, with the January transfer window just around the corner as well, who do you think will be the next big Championship star that's going to be sold to a Premier League club? I think there'll be quite a bit of interest in a few players over January. But if you want to get live updates to your phone whenever a goal goes in, whenever a new transfer story pops up, OneFootball is the place to do that, so I'd highly recommend it. And so the tiers we're going to be putting these people into are either not played enough, so we've literally just not seen enough of them at their Premier League club yet, average, not been the greatest, decent, very good, and then worth every penny. Without any further ado, let's hop into this one. And we're going to start out with Burnley's Josh Brownhill, making his move to the Clarets in January from Bristol City, where he did really develop as a player, obviously formerly of my club, Preston North End, but it was Bristol City where he really started to show his potential there. We all know the thunderbolt that he's got in his locker, the amount of goals he scored from outside the box for Bristol City was absolutely fantastic. But since making his move over to the Premier League and Burnley, I think that Brownhill's adapted fairly well, to be fair to him. It takes a certain type of midfielder to fit in at Burnley with the midfield to the play, but I think that the type of player that Josh Brownhill is, both strong defensively and going forward, his performance levels have been pretty good. I'd throw Brownhill into the decent tier. There's an argument maybe that you could even push him up one more. Next up then to West Ham's side, Benrahma. Now, we've not actually seen all too much of him in the Premier League so far this season. All 4 of his appearances for West Ham this far into the season have come off the bench, but already in that time he showed real moments of quality. He's just played 80 minutes of Premier League so far, but already has 2 assists to his name. Obviously, initially this one is on a loan deal. It's then going to become permanent at the end of the season. Last season in the Championship was something really special from Benrahma, 17 goals and 9 assists. So far this season it seems like West Ham have been preferring Fornals out on that left wing, which is obviously his preferred position, but I think it's only going to be a matter of time before he does manage to force his way into that team, because like I say, with these substitute appearances so far, he has shown real glimpses of quality. Even from the brief moments that he showed so far, I think he'll turn out to be a very good signing for West Ham. Next up then we go to Benrahma's former Brentford teammate Ollie Watkins. Now, at the time, I think we all recognise that Watkins was a superb player leaving the Championship, you know, from that fantastic year he had last season with Brentford, but the money Villa paid for him, we all sort of said, well, Brentford have done pretty well for themselves here to get 28 million for the player, but Ollie Watkins has just taken the Premier League by absolute storm. He's absolutely everything that they lacked from a striker last season. It's quite funny how Villa got so much seemingly wrong with the first transfer window they had in the Premier League, and they got so much right with the second transfer window here. Already this season for Ollie Watkins, after 9 starts, has 6 goals and an assist to his name. You know, strikers who can get into double figures in the Premier League are worth their weight in gold. Consider as well that his ceiling is ridiculously high, being just 24 years old, and he's English as well, so you got that tax added onto it. Even with all the goals he scored for Brentford last season, 26 in the Championship, this signing for the money they paid was still a bit of a gamble by Aston Villa, but boy has that gamble pay off. Right now, I think you have to say that Watkins has been worth every penny. Next up we go to Sheffield United striker Rian Brewster. Now, I know that technically he didn't move from a Championship to Premier League club, he obviously went from Liverpool to Sheffield United, but as he was out on loan in the Championship last season, I decided to include him in this video, and so far this season it's been a bit of a struggle for Brewster in a Sheffield United side which currently finds themselves rooted to the bottom of the Premier League, only on 1 point this far into the season. The low scorers as well, with just 5 goals. It's a deal where I'm not sure if this one was maybe the right one for his career. Sometimes certain players at certain clubs just don't work out, you know. An example I give there is, you know, Callum Robinson to Sheffield United probably wasn't the right move in terms of the system and style of football they play. In 21 starts for Swansea last season, got 11 goals for them, but so far this season for Sheffield United, you'd have to throw him into the average category. It's just not clicked yet, has it? Next up then we move to West Brom's Collin Grant. Now, we spoke about this transfer saga a lot during the summer. It was one which dragged on for seemingly absolutely ages, but eventually West Brom did get this deal over the line for the Huddersfield attacker, who was really potent in the Championship last season. 19 goals and 4 assists in what was a pretty lacklustre Huddersfield side. The West Brom fans were full of optimism when Collin Grant arrived. Has he hit the ground running? Not really for me. I don't know whether it's Grant being isolated or him not quite playing up to his full potential so far. He does have just the one goal to his name, that coming in the draw against Brighton, but with West Brom at times relying on him being the main man going forward, I'd probably have to say he's been pretty average so far. Next up then for Newcastle's Jamaal Lewis, obviously moved over from Norwich in the summer. I think he's better for that season he had with Norwich in the Premier League. So far this season has been part of a Newcastle defender who's had the 7th best defensive record in the Premier League as of recording, and I think he's slotted in quite well to that back line actually. It was quite a bit of money spent on him, it was around about the 15 million mark, but so far I think he's been a decent addition to that Newcastle back line. From one fullback to another, we then go to Sheffield United's Jaden Bogle, who made the move to the Premier League in the summer from Derby County. Now he's one player who we really can't judge because he's barely played for Sheffield United so far. He's not featured for them in the league as of yet. The 20-year-old right back obviously does have stiff competition in that area with George Baldock currently occupying that role for Sheffield United, and after how well he did last season, he was always going to have to be patient waiting for his chance. But it's an interesting move to think about, you know, would this sort of thing have helped him in his career or maybe stunted his growth a little bit? Obviously he's gone from a Derby side where he was playing week in, week out. I was always a massive fan. And I do think that Sheffield United do play a system which would really suit Jaden Bogle. It's just the fact that we've not really seen all too much of him, so we really can't judge this deal as of yet. And of course it wasn't just Bogle who arrived to Sheffield United in the summer, it was also Max Lowe who made the move as well. Lowe, who we have seen a lot more of in the Premier League, already made 6 appearances for Sheffield United. How's he done? It's a tough one to judge because he's come into a Sheffield United side who is struggling with confidence at the moment. Max Lowe's still quite a young player himself, he's only 23 years old. So far for Sheffield United, I'd probably say Lowe's been in the average tier. Next up then to Southampton's Che Adams. Now initially when he made this transfer we weren't really all too sure about it because it has taken him a long time to break into the Southampton starting 11, but now he's a regular starter for them. I think they got really good value for money here actually. The 24-year-old striker links up very well with Danny Ings when they're both on the pitch. I think that those two have got a decent amount of chemistry between them. It reminds me of obviously that wonderful partnership that Birmingham had back in the 18-19 season between Adams and Djukovic. Those two just thrived off each other, didn't they? I would say Che Adams has been a very good sign for Southampton. I think there's more to come from the player as well. Next up then to West Ham United's Jarrod Bowen. Now some players just take to the Premier League instantly. I think that Jarrod Bowen falls into that category. He's been absolutely superb since making his move to London and probably sticked around in the Championship for half a season too long. I was amazed that no one picked him up sooner than West Ham did, but already for West Ham in 22 starts for them has 10 goal contributions. For Hull in the Championship he was absolutely sublime. In 110 starts he scored 52 Championship goals, which for a winger is a ridiculous goal output. Jarrod Bowen's a special player, and for me I think he's been worth every penny to West Ham. So then we go to Aston Villa's Matty Cash, another player who moved over from the Championship to Villa in the summer. This was the sort of pool of players that they were looking into, and I think it served them really well. Matty Cash is another really good value for money signing that they got here. So far this season in the Premier League I think he's taken to it really well. His defensive stats as well as going forward have been very strong. So far this season he's averaged 2.8 tackles per 93 interceptions. We've all seen how much Forest have missed him this season in the Championship, but for Villa I think he was a very good signing. Next up we then move on to Everton's Ben Godfrey, moved over from Norwich during the summer. Now another interesting one, Everton paid a lot of money for Ben Godfrey. I think it was around the 25 million mark in the end. Norwich fans will probably be able to say better than me how he actually was in that Premier League season with Norwich, but he's done a job for Everton wherever he's played so far this season. Hasn't always been playing in his natural position. Against Burnley last time out, put in a really good performance. There's definitely scope for Godfrey to grow into a really good player, and I think that that's the reason Everton bought him ultimately. For the time being, I'd say he's been a decent signing. Next up we then have Crystal Palace's Ebere Eze. Now QPR over the years have had a bit of a thing with letting players go for a little bit too cheap, and I feel like Ebere Eze may be another one that falls into that category. I think that Palace in the end got him for around £16 million, didn't they? But already this season he's taken to the Premier League. His link-up play, how he bounces off some of the others around him, you know, I think we're all excited to see long-term how he and Zaha link up. It was the last live game of football that I got to watch in a stadium was against QPR when they came to Deepdale. Eze ripped us apart that day. In the Championship last season got 14 goals and 8 assists for QPR. Crystal Palace have got a right bargain here. I'm going to say it's been worth every penny so far. Next up we then go to Sheffield United's Aaron Ramsdale. Made the move over from Bournemouth where he had a real breakthrough year last season in the Premier League. So far this season it's been a tough one for Ramsdale. He was always going to have a bit of a tough act to follow really, you know, trying to fill the boots that were left by Dean Henderson and coming into a Sheffield United squad who's just had seemingly all the confidence that's been sucked out of them. Now, to be fair to Ramsdale, so far this season he's made the 3rd most amount of saves in the Premier League, 43 already. Only Carl Darlow and Sam Johnson have made more than him. I think Ramsdale's been a decent signing for Sheffield United. I think the problems that they're having this season are elsewhere in the team. Joe Gelhardt for Leeds United. We've not seen him play for the first team as of yet. I think he's been playing his football for the under-23s, hasn't he? But the 18-year-old was always signed for his potential and one for the future. I still really like him. I thought last season for Wigan was really good in the appearances he got when Preston played at the DW last season. He completely changed the game for them going forward. I think his movement's very intelligent. In the future, will be a very good player for Leeds, but at the time of recording, just not played enough for them really, has he? Another player who left Wigan in the summer was Anthony Robinson. He went to Fulham, and I think that this one could turn out to be one of the real bargain buys of last summer. Only £2 million I think he ended up costing Fulham, which is a ridiculous price for a player as talented as Robinson. We all saw it last season with Wigan, obviously. He originally, we all thought he'd be making that move over to Milan, 23 years old as well. For £2 million, I think you've got to say he's been worth every penny. Callum Wilson now playing for Newcastle United. This one was maybe a little bit of a gamble. Newcastle did splash out 20 million on the Bournemouth attacker. And last season for Bournemouth in their relegation season wasn't the most prolific in front of goal. He didn't have his best season today at Bournemouth. He just got the 8 goals for them that season. But it looks like he's already going to blow that out of the water this season for Newcastle. And the Newcastle side, who, let's face it, aren't exactly the most attacking in the Premier League. For Newcastle, you've got to say he's been worth every penny so far. We're throwing it back a couple of transfer windows for this next one, but Adam Webster now playing for Brighton, formerly of Bristol City in the Championship. I think he's been a very good acquisition for Brighton, who seemingly are stockpiling fantastic English centre-halves at the moment, aren't they? I think there's quite a lot to like about Adam Webster. He fits into that back three that they like to play with really nicely. I'd say he's been a very good signing for Brighton since his arrival from Bristol City. Then for Sheffield United's Ollie McBurney obviously made that transfer over from Swansea after a really successful season with them in the Championship. Now, Sheffield United have always been a side who, I mean, ever since last season, they've not been the most free-scoring of teams. They averaged just over a goal per game last season, actually, with 39. Ollie McBurney was their joint top scorer with just the 6 goals. I'd say McBurney on the whole has been a decent signing for Sheffield United. Next up to Brighton's Neil Mapay. Now, he's got Premier League defenders on strings week in, week out, doesn't he? We saw all that with him in the Championship, and Brentford just have a track record with producing fantastic strikers. For Brentford, in the 18-19 season, he got 25 goals as well as 8 assists. Last season being Brighton's top scorer with 10 goals. This season already has 4 to his name. Overall for Brighton, I'd say he's been a very good signing. And then finishing it off with Daniel James now of Manchester United. He made his move over from Swansea in the summer of 2019. Now last season he probably played more football than he first anticipated to when he originally made that move to United. He made 26 starts for them in the league last season. And of course he's not like a world beater of a player, but I don't think anyone ever expected him to be. In that time in the Premier League for them, he chipped in with 9 goal contributions, 3 goals and 6 assists. I think he's been sort of a decent squad player for them, someone who can come off the bench. But guys, as you can see on screen now, that is the completed tier list and Championship players who have recently made a move to the Premier League, how I see them getting on. So do let me know in the comments down below if you disagree or agree with my picks. I'm interested to know. Also, who do you think is going to be the next Championship player to make that move over to the Premier League? I think there's going to be quite a bit of interest in January. But nevertheless, thanks for watching, guys. If you went on to enjoy, make sure to leave a like and please do subscribe for a bit of regular Championship content. But other than that, thanks for watching and I'll see you all in the next one.